The growing consumer revolt against woke ideology. I'm finally glad people are finally waking up to the woke culture, or basically it's communism. Basically, this is what they're using to try to control people, to try to shut down free speech. I mean, woke is just another tool in the globalist tool bag that's being used against the American people. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree that has a link to all my socials there. And also check out my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. And there's also a link to my Instagram as well, so check that out. All right, let's talk about this news. It's likely true no executives at Anheuser-Busch knew what the Bud Light marketing department were planning when they decided to deploy an absurdist and deeply offensive transgendered TikTok influencer to sell their beer. I mean, it's just this person takes what a woman is and like embellish it, makes it ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy. But soon after it happened, public disgust became rather obvious. The crisis began, but for weeks the company was in denial. And I was laughing because I saw it. I saw what was coming. I saw it coming. I saw people getting upset, like normies, regular people were getting upset with this. And finally, the CEO made a statement that only infuriated people more simply because it wasn't an apology or even an honest admission of anything that was happening. It had the sterilized and robotic quality we've come to associate with government statements that pretend that all is well when everyone knows it isn't. 2 weeks ago, the line about Bud Light on the streets was that the consumer protests would run the news cycle and then disappear. That the protests were limited to the far right and conservative activists. But most consumers don't care either way. Every story in the mainstream media said the same thing. They further suggested that if you don't drink Bud Light, you're likely a dupe of dangerous fanatics. It's just crazy how they try to do that. But here we are, 3 weeks later, and finally, the company stepped up again to address the growing meltdown. They put both the vice president of marketing and her boss on leave, which one supposes is a way of firing them while minimizing the legal liabilities and the sense that the company was facing a real crisis. Quote, given the circumstances, Alyssa Herenscheid has decided to take a leave of absence, which we support. An Anheuser-Busch spokeswoman wrote in an email to the Wall Street Journal. Quote, Daniel Blake has also decided to take a leave of absence. Um, I just love that given the circumstances line. This move, of course, has satisfied no one, fed the news cycle even more, and further entrenched the consumer boycott that has spread to all the company's brands. Do you see what's happening here? We are watching the rise of genuine consumer awareness and hence sovereignty. The public is finally fighting back. I love it. I love to see it. I love to see when normies are actually stepping to the plate and speaking out and actually seeing what's actually going on. Only a few years ago, politics was pretty well kept out of the economics and marketing, unless you were on the left, I should say. But we could have our differences over ideology, but that didn't invade our commercial spaces. For decades, if not centuries, the marketing has largely operated outside the poison of politics. Or at very least, large companies pretended to be neutral in order to maximize their public reach, which makes sense. When you go to the Cheesecake Factory, no one cares what you believe, and no one tells you what you have to believe. It's been the same in every commercial space since the late Middle Ages. The consumer is the king in this realm, and the politics doesn't belong. The advance of this system represented a major change in social structures the world over. It meant that wealth and power came not from conquest and exploitation, but rather service to fellow human beings. By the late 19th century, the advances of consumer sovereignty and meritocracy, replacing aristocracy, seemed largely complete. During this time, too, humanity experienced and enjoyed the greatest flurry of innovations in human history, seemingly all at once. The commercialization of steel, the rise of electricity, the mass availability of internal combustion and flight, the telephone, and the spreading of wealth to all classes. It wasn't politics that did this, but the people's power of the market economy. The reality has always been a major annoyance to the ideologues who believe that political agitation should invade the whole of life. Much of this has changed with woke ideology, which is the latest iteration, the deeply dangerous fanaticism that the personal must always be political. The slogan was bandied about in the 1960s, but failed to capture commercial institutions, which continued to be governed by mundane concerns about public's desires to get products and services at a good price. I mean, who would want that, right? I say sarcastically. But with the series of small steps and then big ones, the marketplace has become seriously politicized, with consumers conscripted by various causes. The advent of ESG and DEI movements are major parts of the posh of fully invading the commercial world. And you know, I've done tons of videos on ESG and DEI. Again, is about control. And companies have to get a high rating or else see their stocks delisted by powerful securities advisories. It was all an attempt to force the marketplace to serve political priorities above all else. Much of this has taken place without the awareness of the public. We've largely gone about our business without realizing what was taking place beneath the surface. Believe me, but it wasn't from lack of trying, because I basically shout from the mountaintop about this woke stuff that's been happening for years. But in recent years, consumers have been stunned to see what is really going on at these companies. As their management layers ballooned and cheap credit seemingly gave them a license to pursue politics over quality products and services, they have made major efforts towards twisting company culture in political directions. They started putting ideology over profitability, which absolutely makes no sense for a business. I mean, you're supposed to go for profit, right? Especially in the hiring of top management positions. They favored the protected, privileged, and Ivy educated over people within the company who actually understood the customer base. And they did this with brazen acts of racial and gender tokenism that punished competence and rewarded political loyalties. So hopefully some of these companies are seeing what's happening to Anheuser-Busch and they start waking up and going back to profitability and putting out good products rather than trying to be political. Because we don't care what the company what the company should not be political, because people don't really care about politics when they purchase products. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out democrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.